Hey everybody, David Chang here again, founder of The Art of Thinking Smart, and I'm covering in this series long-term care. The first video talked about what it was, what the costs, how likely will people need it, and this one I'm going to talk about the options. So once you get to the point where a loved one or you need long-term care, what options do you have? What we'll cover, we'll talk about the different types of caregivers, the different types of long-term care, and also the different facilities and communities that are available for people that need long-term care or getting close to it. This is very basic information. You can go to the website Art of Thinking Smart, and I break down in definition greater detail. But the purpose of this series is just to give you the information you need to get ready, start planning for you or your loved ones. We have 75 million baby boomers in this country, the United States, and 10 to 15,000 are retiring every single day. And I showed in the last video that those that turn 65, 70% will need some sort of long-term care. And with nursing home prices upwards of $135,000 in Hawaii, about $120,000, $125,000 in the United States on average, it's something that's not cheap. It's very expensive. So that's why planning for it is very important. So part of long-term care is people that either it's a family member or those that you hire or volunteers that take care of the person that needs the long-term care for what we called the ADLs, active daily living. In the previous video, I talk about what those ADLs are. And so the basic homemaker services or basic nurses' aides, they're not certified. Generally speaking, this is for non-medical help, light housekeeping, companionship, supervision. Some of them are trained. At this level, and most family members will fall into this level, where it's just a matter of, okay, we're going to help grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, just with the basic ADLs that we talked about of long-term care. Medicare, Medicaid, and I'll talk about that in other video of how you fund it, generally does not fund the nurses' aides or the homemaker services at that area. We talked about how in the United States, the average is about $18 an hour, $24 in the state of Hawaii. And for here, the basic ones, you got to also make sure, if you do have long-term care insurance or coverage, does it cover nurses' aides or those that are not certified or licensed for that care? Will it cover the cost of that? So that's one of the things that you want to find out. The next step, now these are generally licensed, and all the states have very differing laws. That's one of the things that I've learned, is that the medical industry is fractured as a whole in general, and when you break it down by states, each state has their own rules. So your state may be different, and I just want to talk about the overview basics. I'm not going to get into the details. But usually the next level are the home health aides, certified nurses' aides that are under the supervision of a registered nurse, doctor, any type of medical professional that does some of the medical care. It could be doing just lab draws, helping with medication with the RNs. Again, getting a little bit deeper into the ADLs than from what homemaker services will do. Medicare and Medicaid, most likely, depending on the type of care, cover this here. Now the next level we have are the licensed practical nurse, what we call LPNs, and the licensed vocational nurses, LVNs. They are more educated, they got higher licensing, higher testing standards, more rigorous than home health aide or certified nurses' aides. The next one level, then you get into the registered nurses. So the registered nurses, a lot of home private duty companies, the one I work with, we have doctors that help out, but primarily it's the RN that drives a lot of the ADL medical care for the clients. And so the RNs, registered nurses, then we also have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. So these, like what they do therapy, especially for post-operative, or if there's a pain, injury that you want to get better safely, the therapist will help out with that. We have medical doctors that a lot of them will also do the home visits, and some of the entities, organizations, hospitals the RNs, everybody's under the care of the doctor. And then we also have the social workers, medical social workers also work very hard. They really work in many respects as a consultants. They're helping making sure the client is getting the care needed. They really, as like a case manager, just look at all the different providers. They figure out, okay, this is the type of care you need. Here is somebody that we know can do the care. We'll check in every month or so. So those are the different types of caregivers, very broad, just kind of 20,000 feet in the air looking down, and the differing levels. And of course, the higher level up you go with the type of care you need, the more expensive it becomes. Next thing talking about is long-term care. So where does long-term care happen? How do the caregivers give care? A lot of common ones now are the home care, home health care that we talked about, where this is called aging in place. We're seeing that many of the seniors now, they prefer to stay in their home. It's kind of, they've lived there for years. Children, sometimes grandchildren, have been raised there. They prefer not to go to a hospital, and they prefer to have care at the home. So private duty, or sometimes, depending on what insurance or Medicare, Medicaid happens, again, it depends, may do it at home. And if people have the finances to do it, you can have higher skilled nursing at the home with all the equipment if needed. Independent living, a lot of the senior care facility, the communities, you hear about it a lot. We have in Hawaii, some say, oh, in Florida, you have to be of a certain age, maybe 50, 55 to live in this. But it's independent, but generally speaking, it's a social community for the seniors, for senior independent living. The next level at times, there's a lot of community services. So it depends on your organization. Maybe the state, the city, nonprofits will offer transportation services, the meal delivering services. Maybe there's a senior community center in your city where you live, and the nonprofit helps out with adult daycare. So community services are out there. Adult daycare that I briefly talked about, kind of like child daycare, but you'll have those that are licensed to help take care of the seniors during the day, and then the family members picks them up at nights or so. Next is assisted living facility, what we call an ALF, and there's different levels of assisted living. And pretty much it's a little bit more care and services provided than independent living. Some have 24 hours. They'll do maybe laundry. Maybe they'll do food. It all depends on what the different facility is. But basically, some of the ADLs, active daily living that we talked about, is covered 24 hours in an assisted living facility. Once you're no longer what we call ambulatory, meaning you cannot move anymore and you can't stay in an assisted living facility, you have to go to a higher level. And that's where we call the skilled nursing facility. And this is where generally people who need the highest level of medical care will be in what we call a SNF. A CCRC is what we call a continuing care retirement community. So basically, the way, and I talked about sometimes it can be fragmented, yeah, maybe you need basic at home. Then you decide, it's time to go independent living. Then you need a little bit more care, so you go to assisted living. But you need more, so you go to a SNF, skilled nursing. A CCRC has all of the different levels in generally one location, so you don't have to move. So the people will come to you, or the community that you live in, you'll be maybe moved in within that community or facility, the different levels of care. And lastly, hospice care. This type of care is for the terminally ill, the end of life, where we know that, okay, due to this type of health issue, they're going to be terminally ill, and there's a different type of care that we have for hospice. I talked about in the last video how much, all the way from about $19,000 for adult daycare, all the way up to private nursing homes, $135,000. And as I mentioned, a different facility cost. The more care you need, the higher the cost gets. So that's why we're seeing that towards the end of somebody's life, those last year, 2, 3 years cost more than usually the first several years that they needed, because they need significant amounts of care towards the end if they end up getting into a nursing home. And this is what just shows the cost for Hawaii and the United States. You can just kind of look at the numbers. I have links on the website that will show you a little bit more in depth of your state, or a little bit more in depth of the different types of care and the cost that I've shown here as well. So thank you very much for checking out this video. The next video I'm going to be talking about is how do you fund this? It's so expensive, the different types of care. And so what do we do to strategize to make sure we can afford it? Thanks so much. And you can go to artofthinkingsmart.com/care in order to get more information. Aloha.